I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting is recorded by the local scene. Anyone intended to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Great, so we're going to start with a roll call vote because we have some participants or members of the committee at home. I'm Brian Payne, I'm the chair of the committee.
David McKee.
Alexander Graham.
Getting 8. Nathan, are you there?
All right, now I'm unmuted. Yes, Nathan here.
All right, great.
Dot's back, I think.
Oh, Dot, are you here?
I am here.
Great. Okay. So we'll start the public hearing to review and discuss CPC projects to be recommended for town meeting for fiscal year 25. Let's see, Town of Kingston Community Preservation Committee public hearing. Do I read all that? Pursuant MGL Chapter 44B, Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, the Kingston Community Preservation Committee will hold a public hearing to review and discuss community preservation projects to be recommended to the town meeting for the fiscal year of 2025. The Community Preservation Committee is also seeking input from the community, town boards, commissions, and other town committees on the needs, possibilities, and resources of the town regarding community preservation possibilities and resources, and as to ideas and suggestions for future projects as well. Said hearing shall be held on Thursday, March 7th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Kingston Town Hall, room 200, 26 Evergreen Street, Kingston, Massachusetts. So I move to open the public hearing. Again, the vote has to be a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Need a second.
Oh, I need a second, sorry.
Second.
Thank you.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Nathan
Dot,
Hooper,
aye.
I think we got both of them, right? All right. So we can now start with the preservation of the projects. In no particular order, we'll start with affordable housing. We have a representative from affordable housing that can speak to it. Online, perhaps?
I'm here, Jean Landis, Norman, Chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Thank you, Jean. The floor is yours.
As you know, the Affordable Housing Trust has been in existence for several years now. We have been very slowly accumulating funds so that when a appropriate project becomes available, we'll have the money to move forward. What has recently thrown a kink in our plans is the water and sewer moratorium, because our plan originally was to work with developers in subsidizing additional units in what they were proposing to make them affordable. At this point, most of the developers are on hold because of the moratoriums. We recently began working with Habitat for Humanity. We've been looking at foreclosure homes or other abandoned homes in Kingston, trying to determine if any of them are available, and we're focusing on them because they do have existing water and sewer. We have been very proactive in working with the town treasurer and making sure that our money is invested in the best possible interest rate so that we can grow the amount that we have. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the real estate market in this area is extremely expensive. We have a little bit over 800,000 right now, and trying to purchase a property or build a home would exhaust everything that's in that fund. So we're back again asking if the amount that's appropriated for housing can once again be transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust so we can continue to grow that fund so that when an opportunity comes along, we'll be ready to go.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions for affordable housing coming from the committee? Any questions from our online members? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next project proposal, the Jones River Corridor Preservation. So a representative to speak on that behalf?
Yeah, that's me. I have our other one pulled up first. Any chance we can do that? The Callista Farm?
Sure, go ahead with that, Matt.
I'm gonna share my screen if that's all right. Did that share? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So we're looking to do an invasive plant treatment project at Callista Farm. Callista Farm is a small conservation area off of Spring Street and Elder Street, just Main Street in Kingston. The town has owned it since 2010. It was an agricultural field. What we're doing now is transitioning it into a sandplain grassland. Sandplain grassland is one of the rarest habitat types we have in Massachusetts. One of the ways that we're doing that, in addition to changing the mowing regime, is to try to get rid of the invasives. So there are several species that are there. They're herbaceous species, so they're pretty hard to pull out by hand with any success. So really the only way that I see that we're going to take care of those is with a spot treatment with herbicide. So we got a couple quotes from local companies, pretty reasonable, and we're looking to have a treatment done this summer. Main target species, black swallowwort. One of the reasons why we want to get rid of black swallowwort, it looks a lot like milkweed. It's in the same family. So the thought is that monarch butterflies lay their eggs on this, thinking that they're laying their eggs on milkweed. Then the caterpillars hatch, can't feed, die. So it becomes a population sink for monarch butterflies, which are having enough trouble on their own. So we do have a couple of native milkweed species there. We're looking to have this species and a couple of the other ones there treated so that we can get some of the more beneficial species in there. This is one of the areas that that black swallowwort has sort of taken over. You can see in the background to the right, that's the type of grass that we want to spread throughout the whole field, but it doesn't really spread where these invasives have taken hold. And just as kind of a follow-up, we've had a couple other projects through CPC at Callista Farm recently. Last year, we had a project to put a small parking area in, and that one was successful here. Now you have a parking area for 2 vehicles with some fencing delineating the entrance. And then we have one from the year before for kiosks and signage, and this is the sign that will be on a sort of a wayside exhibit out there, hopefully by spring. So just a little background that we're doing a good job of actually getting our projects done when you guys approve them.
Thank you, Matt.
That's all. Any questions?
And the budget is $2,895, correct?
Confirm that. Sounds right. Let me just pull up. Yes.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from committee members online? Any questions, comments, statements from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Matt, do you want to just continue with Jones River?
Sure.
Thank you.
Just gonna take 1 second to pull that up. Yeah, I'm just going to share screen again. All right, so we're working on a tandem project right now, Conservation Department working with Jones River Watershed Association and several other non-profits, looking at purchasing Roger Carrera's bog property on Route 106, Wapping Road, right where you come around the bend there, you see all the cranberry bogs. Those have been up for sale. That's an area that we targeted a while ago for being ripe for ecological restoration. There's been a lot of modification of wetlands, Fountainhead Brook, modifying the Jones River directly. So there's really big impact for ecological restoration as well as resiliency to storms, sort of fixing the floodplain. In addition to that, we saw opportunity to have things like, an environmental stewardship center that would help, sort of take care of our conservation properties in town, as well as have an agricultural preservation component, food security purposes, and just making sure that somebody's growing good food. So I put this together just to give a little background on the project. This is going to be available on our Conservation Department website. It's actually already there if anybody wants to take a look at it. But here's a little overview of the property, the majority of the property anyways. You get a lot of wetland bogs off to the right. You see Fountainhead Brook come through there and the Jones River in the background. And then the borrow pit area on the left and the composting part of the agricultural operation, and that's Route 106. This does border Hathaway Preserve, so right at the bottom of the screen there is the access point that goes back to Hathaway Preserve and the town conservation property that's forested. So this would add to that. What we're thinking is you would have wetland restoration all around the eastern side there, and including Fountainhead and the Jones River. That little blue area would be an area that would be set aside as agricultural preservation. How that would work is sort of up in the air, but what we're thinking is that it will either be leased out to a nonprofit or leased out to a farmer. We may be able to preserve a couple of those bogs closest to 106, which might help people, just kind of have the same view they've been having for decades driving by there, but also be able to potentially run like a pick your own bog there, or have somebody run the bog, just to maintain some of that. The stewardship center would be run out of the existing residential property that's in that forested area right in the middle, and there are two large outbuildings as well that would lend themselves well to that type of a program, rather than trying to sublet those out in the middle of the property. There's just a little bit more detail there where you see the arrow. Fountainhead Brook used to be on the east, swap it back there, fix the Jones River out back, and convert all of the wetland cranberry bogs back into the EBW. This is just a little imagery slider. 1974 is on the left here, so you see Fountainhead Brook running through the middle of those couple of cranberry bogs, and as I slide to 1985, you see those cranberry bogs have expanded, and now Fountainhead Brook is off to the left of that forested area in a series of swales and pipes. So that's one thing that we're looking at in terms of, sort of fixing the waterways on site. Same thing here on the left. Those first couple pictures are Fountainhead Brook currently, just sort of grass-lined swales and pipes, and we hope to get that back into an actual stream condition that can support fish and aquatic invertebrates. And then the rest of the pictures here are the Jones River. So you see the banks of the Jones River are just sort of steep grass banks, and you have a pump system there drafting water directly out of the river for the irrigation of the bogs, and our hope would be to fix all of that as well. So just a little sketch of what we hope it would look like afterwards, keeping a couple of bogs out front, and then maybe, some greenhouses and agricultural beds producing crops, maybe fruit trees or hops. There's all sorts of different, ideas that could go there. And then for the rest of it, you'd have Fountainhead Brook back on the east side over here, and all these bogs would be converted back into natural wetlands. And just a little slider showing that too, what it looks like now and what it could look like. Talked a little bit about the stewardship center. Again, that's up in the air. That's our concept idea, because it's something that could fill a local gap and really help us out with land management on our properties in town, as well as help with a lot of different things, help the community start, to prepare for climate change, things like that. So, sorry, was that a question or random sounds?
I think that was random sounds. If you can just keep going,
Cool.
be great.
Yeah, just showing at the end sort of where it is. You get the red right there with the star. That's the Carrera property. The dark green or light green there, parcels are all things that are preserved in some form or another. So this is really the last major, obviously protecting the corridor of the Jones River has been the main goal of, my department as well as JRWA and the general conservation community for decades. And they've done a good job of it. And this is really the last major part in that. There'll be a few small parcels here and there, but this is the last major protection that we can do for the Jones River. So we're looking to shore this up. We expect that the majority of this is going to be grant funded, so we're asking for $50,000 this year, and we're hoping to get 100 in the next 2 successive years to go towards purchase, to go towards match funding, to go towards some of this other work that we're doing, whether it's the agricultural side or the ecological restoration. So we expect that we're not going to be coming to town meeting asking for a ton of money, but I wanted to give just a little breakdown of the project tonight and say that this will be available on our website for people to sort of peruse and then ask questions.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the committee?
I was just going to ask the status of any grants that have been applied for. I know you've applied for some other grants, and have you had any luck there?
So that process really just started. So what we did is we're in collaboration with different state agencies, the Office of Coastal Zone Management and Energy and Environmental Affairs. They put together a statewide grant to the feds, to NOAA, for climate resiliency. And they included a significant sum towards the purchase of the property. The only caveat there is that's specifically for ecological restoration. So any component that we do there for agriculture or stewardship or anything that involves buildings, they're not going to want to fund. So we may not be able to use all of that money if it comes through. We've already put in a placeholder for the state municipal vulnerability preparedness grant, and we expect that that will be a really competitive project for them. And they have a lot more that they look at, so we would be able to wrap in pretty much the whole project with them. And we're also going to be applying for the state's cranberry bog, I think they call it, I'm blanking on the name, but it's a program to purchase retired cranberry bogs, essentially. So we have a lot of different things that we're looking at for grant funding. We're looking at just trying to get, it's a lot of moving parts and trying to get the purchase done. So we're looking at a lot of different things right now, but we have several major grants already in the works.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public? All right, we'll move on to the next proposed project. It's a $1,000 request for an Eagle Scout project on this chimney Swift Tower from the young Mr. Quinn. Is he here, or is Matt, are you handling that one too?
Matthew Quinn should be there. I think I saw a Matt on Zoom. Give him a second.
Matt, Matt Quinn, that is, did you want to speak to the project at all?
I can get started if he has a, we'll see if it might take him a minute to connect or something.
Thanks, Matt.
This was something that I shopped out to him as an Eagle Scout project idea. Chimney swifts are a species that spend probably 99 or 90% of their lives on the wing. They really the only times they're not flying is when they're roosting. And when they're flying, they're eating insects. They eat a lot of small biting insects. They do a good job with things like mosquitoes, gnats. They migrate really long distances. They're one of the species that go down to South America every winter. So they're one of the species that's in decline. A lot of bird species are in steep decline. They're one that they're thought to be way down. And part of that is they learned to roost in chimneys when we started putting chimneys everywhere. And now what we've been doing is capping chimneys and just building less chimneys in general, just based on new design standards. You add that onto things like the Plymouth cordage, where they took down the giant stack, like things like that. So putting up swift towers is a way to try to bolster their populations, limp them along a little bit, give them a place to live during the summer and raise babies, or give them a spot to stop by when they're migrating and have a little bit of safety. So Matthew is working on, he's priced out everything, got a design together to build one. We worked with Rec to pick a spot over at the Opachinsky complex, and he's just looking to get funding for that.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the public? Okay, we'll move to our next project. Is a $71,850 request for repairs to the building of Major John Bradford's homestead. We have a representative to speak on behalf of this proposal.
Hello, this is Jean Landis Norman again. I'm Vice President of Jones River Village Historic Society.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We are the proud owners and maintainers of the historic Major John Bradford homestead here in Kingston. Major John Bradford was the grandson of William Bradford, who came over on the Mayflower, and Major John Bradford donated most of the land that is now used for the center of town, for the where the UU Church is located, the old burying ground, the training green. That was all donated from the land that Major Bradford received as a bequest from his grandfather. We have been doing various projects on the property to try and maintain it. It is an antique property on the National Register, so the cost to do repairs is a little more than in a normal home because certain guidelines do have to be followed, and we're doing it piece by piece. We did receive a grant from the state a couple of years ago for $25,000 and used that to do a number of significant repairs. We now find that we are in need of some additional repairs, which I have outlined in our request to you. Do you want me to go over each of those?
I think we have the information in front of us and we heard it last time, so I don't know if we need that level of detail.
Okay. Being cognizant of the fact that there may have been other applicants for this money in this particular category, we did prioritize them. Obviously, we're in need of all of them, and it does total the $71,850. But we are hopeful that once again the town of Kingston, as well as the CPC representatives, will support our ongoing efforts to maintain this historically significant property.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, so we'll move on to the next two requests, which are somewhat tied together and need a little bit of a preface. We have two requests from recreation, tennis courts, rehabilitation, renovation, and a recently submitted request for recreation irrigation wells. This came across about a week and a half ago, where recreation is requesting, I believe, they could correct me if they're wrong, they're requesting to replace the tennis courts rehabilitation renovation request with the recreation irrigation well request. I know that this committee worked, before I even got on the committee, to create the process to submit applications. They did a lot of work to create a new process. And then over the past year or so, we've worked to try to create a calendar of the process that reflects the rest of how the rest of the state does it. And so this submission is, of course, as everyone knows, well past the deadline. I don't think we need to be super rigid with our calendars, but we do need to recognize that. So I'm at a bit of a loss as chair as how to even approach the request. And my suggestion is that the committee should probably first vote on whether or not we want to consider the new request in the first place. And then once we allow it on the table, then we can hear the request from the representatives. That's my suggestion to the committee. Does anyone have anything that from the committee, that they agree or disagree or have a better idea on how to handle the request? Please, Dave, go ahead.
I just, and not sure if we're just opening this up for discussion right now, whether to allow this to go forward or not go forward, but my gut feeling is that if we allow this after the deadline, where do we draw the line? I know, speaking from a historical aspect, we have a couple of different applications that we'd like to forward, but we were late with the submittal. We had them, we were going to submit them late, so we decided to hold them back because we missed the deadline. Now, if we allow this to go forward, are we opening that up for, are we opening up a whole can of worms here by doing this?
Yep.
I'm not opposed to this project.
Okay.
I understand this project, and I don't oppose it, but are we opening up that can of worms by, do we allow other organizations to go forward with their applications?
No.
So I guess my question is to the committee is how have they handled pressing requests in the past? The request for the well and the irrigation system is pressing in terms of the need. Huh?
Your microphone needs to be on.
Oh, I thought it was on.
It is on, I think.
It is on, isn't it?
Yeah, just bring it closer, man.
Okay, bring it closer. Okay, so, but my thought process is, this is a pretty pressing need to maintain the fields down in Opachinski without any other avenues for us to maintain that property. So that's why I'm wondering what we've done in the past when we've had pressing needs. If we don't do this now, we risk not maintaining the fields, and it could it potentially costing us more in the long run to fix the damage to the fields. So that's my question for the committee, how we've handled it.
I don't know I don't have the answer to that question. I've only been on the committee for a matter of months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know before I joined the committee a couple years ago, the then committee did a lot of work to change the application process, to make it more formal, and to structure it in such a way that it made it easier for people to submit application, made it clearer on how and when to submit applications. And there was a lot of work done by the then committee to put together this process. And then last year, we changed the calendar so that we would adhere to how other towns in Massachusetts do it and what was recommended to us by the Community Preservation Trust. So this may be an unprecedented situation in where we have a pressing need that needs immediate attention. We do have the money for it. And if Recreation is removing their tennis court rehabilitation renovations, then we certainly have the money for it.
This is my first meeting with this committee. Normally, I'm kind of a stickler for following due process. But, you know, briefly reading through the application and understanding the need and being a member of this community, I would at least like to hear from the applicant in this situation. Because in my opinion, it is pressing, and if we are, you know, if the proposal was to move funds from a previous application, because this is a pressing need, then I think at the very least, I would just like to hear from the applicant. But that's my opinion. But I do agree that we should follow due process, especially with all the work that was done previously.
Does Dodd or Nathan have any insight that they would like to share with us?
I have a couple
Dodd,
things.
oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the elements of the established process is to allow the committee time to review the application and work through any you know, concerns or issues. And the late submission does make it hard for everyone to sort of scramble and try to do things properly in a contracted amount of time.
My question is this a maintenance problem? And should it be covered by CPC money?
Yeah, that's a great question that I think we can address should we vote to hear the application. My understanding is that it would fall within the jurisdiction of the CPC. If we decide to review the application, it would most likely meet merit for CPC funding. I mean, I would agree with Nathan's point. The application was submitted on Tuesday. A revised one was submitted about 8 hours ago. I think we do need to keep in mind that every member of this committee is a volunteer who hold full-time jobs and, you know, on other town committees and church committees and school committees and have a whole bunch of other stuff to do. And I read this application as I was sitting at this table. I came a half an hour early just so that I could get out of my house and have an opportunity to read the application. So I agree with Nathan's concerns here about really haven't had time to vet it. However, I do want the committee to vote, so I will make a motion that given the unprecedented nature and the immediate needs, that the committee consider the application now being presented before us titled Recreation Irrigation Well. And I'll wait to hear if there is a second.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion from the committee before we vote on whether or not to hear the application?
So this vote, Brian, is solely on whether we're going to listen to the presentation.
Please restate that.
Okay, this discussion is only on, are we going to, or this vote is only on, do we open this up for discussion to listen to the presentation?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's not a vote on moving it forward. It's simply allowing them to come forward with a rather late application. Any other questions or discussions from the committee members before we do a roll vote? We'll start the roll vote. Brian Payne, I vote no.
David McKee, I vote aye. Yes.
Suzanne Haggerty, I vote aye, yes.
Alexander Graham, I vote aye, yes.
Nathan Hedberg, I vote aye, yes.
Dot, I vote aye.
The ayes have it, and we can move forward with the application. So my first clarification question is this replacing the tennis court, or is it in addition to?
So good evening. My name is Keith Hickey. I serve as your town administrator. I am bouncing between this meeting and another, so I just would like to introduce the topic if I could, and then turn it over to the person who will absolutely blow you away with information, our Recreation Director, Sue Woodworth. This situation came up about a week and a half ago, as you mentioned earlier. Sue made me aware of it. We had a conversation about what our options would be. One of the things I did before presenting an application for your consideration was reach out to the state CPC representative, and I apologize, I don't recall his name. Stewart. I spoke to Stewart because frankly, I didn't want to waste your time or Sue's in completing an application if it wasn't an eligible cost. And he told me that it absolutely was. I certainly understand and respect the fact that this committee has spent a ton of time over the last year or so revising rules, processes, timelines, and things of that nature. Unfortunately, you know, in situations with municipal government, sometimes they just don't, it just doesn't fit within those guidelines. This situation, as you mentioned earlier, is unique. It would replace the tennis courts, which I think is your first question. So I apologize for going a bit far off of that question. But it would replace the tennis courts. The Recreation Commission voted this past Monday evening to authorize the Recreation Director to present this evening and inform you that this would replace, we would respectfully remove our application for the tennis court project, and the Recreation Commission will look at this in a future year. The challenge we're facing, frankly, is that there are 3 wells, one of which has been out of service now for a few years. The remaining 2 wells, the Recreation Commission has been expending approximately $25,000 a year to try to maintain and limp those wells along to be able to provide the necessary water to irrigate the Opachinski complex. Unfortunately, earlier this year, in preparing those wells, it was determined that the wells are no longer able to satisfy the water requirements to properly irrigate those fields and should be abandoned. So what you have in front of you this evening is an application with a total cost of just about $137,000. And Sue can get into how it'll be actually less of a request from the CPC than that. And Sue will get into the specifics about that in a few minutes. The challenge we have, frankly, is, and I think you'll hear that from a number of people who are here this evening, the field complex is a vital recreation asset to the community that hosts a tremendous number of games that occur. Right now, as we stand this spring, those wells cannot operate and those fields will not be irrigated until new wells are drilled and online. That will occur, will take, several months from the time we get approval of funding to have those wells up and running. If they aren't approved through the CPC, there are other options for funding, respectfully and candidly. But I do believe, though, that this is the most fiscally prudent way to fund those wells. I expect if the CPC does not fund the wells, the well project, or recommend the well project this evening, there may be, and I would assume there would be a citizen petition submitted on the town warrant for town meeting in the spring requesting to pay for the cost of those wells through tax dollars. I think it's more fiscally prudent, frankly, to utilize funds that are available to us now through CPC funds that would not impact property taxes any more than we're going to be requesting through all the budget requests that we have already. I understand your concern about setting a precedent. My understanding, and speaking to Stuart, was that this group has the ability to consider any application that comes in after the deadline on its merits. And while this might set a precedence, because it's the first one since you've adopted these new timelines, if an application does come forward in the future, you don't need to hear it if you don't think it's necessary. The challenge we have, and one of the comments I heard throughout the last week and a half was, well, they can come back at the fall town meeting and CPC can work through the process at that point. Respectfully, I think the damage to the fields with lack of irrigation will have occurred. And to a point that was made a minute ago, it's going to cost a lot more money, I think, to rehabilitate the fields than just construct a new well field for irrigation. So I certainly appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to consider, or this committee is willing to consider this application. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm downstairs at another meeting. If somebody has a question for me, I'm happy to come back up. But candidly, Sue's the brains behind this organization with this, and she can answer the questions you have. I just want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you for consideration, and I hope that you'll support the application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I would also agree that now that the committee has accepted to review the application, we need to evaluate based on its merits, not consider the timing of its submission.
Yep, I appreciate everyone on the committee taking on this challenge to get this turned around really fast.
Thank you very much. Again, as Keith mentioned, we do really appreciate you taking this into consideration and giving us the opportunity to present this and just to hear us out. So my name is Susan Woodworth. I'm the director of the Parks and Recreation Department, and I've been the director here for 25 years. And yes, this is an unprecedented application submission. We have never done this before in all the time that the CPC has been part of our community. So again, thank you for that. This did come to us fairly recently, as Keith mentioned, probably within the last 2 weeks, and we've been working really diligently with not only reaching out to the state, but just between ourselves, between Keith and I, and talking to other community members and other ways that we can try to get funding from this. As he did mention, the project is right now projected at about $137,000. There's approximately $25,000 in the recreation budget that we will be able to use for this project because we have money already set aside that we normally do for well redevelopment and some other irrigation situations like that. One of the other things that we did in the last 48 hours, actually, is reach out to our Kingston Youth Sports Organization. They are a tremendous partner in the town of Kingston. Since the complex was opened in 2004, they have been our partners, not only in their numerous hours of thousands and thousands of hours of volunteer services to help protect that property. They also support us quite economically over the last 20 years. They have probably donated at least, I know, more than $1 million worth of either user fees or capital improvement projects. So they are a very valuable partner to us in this community. So we reached out to them, and I did have a meeting with them last evening as well to let them know what was going on in the situation, because I think having the most information is really valuable to all of us, and to share that and to see how we all can all work together. They took time unexpectedly to listen to me for about an hour and a half last night, and to provide opportunities for questions and answers from them, and also to see what their thoughts were and what their support could be. As you can see from some of the people that are participating online and then all of those that are here tonight, it is an important decision from our community, and people do care about this property. One of the other things that I presented to them, even though they pay a pretty large user fee annually, and again, they do donate quite a bit of money for capital expenditures over the years, I did ask them very candidly if there's any opportunity for them to support a part of this project. I did receive several emails this morning from that organization and some of the independent organizations, and they are willing to also contribute to this particular project. So they have reached out to me and will be able to support an additional $20,000, bringing our request from 112 to, I think I did the math, 92,000, 92,000, thanks. On the spot, my math. So I can consider revising the request from 112,000 to 92,000 with all of their support. And again, I'd like to thank everybody that's here, everybody that's online, everybody that's a part of that community. It was a very quick turnaround time, and for them to make that concession, I think, is pretty admirable just in our community in and of itself. With regard to the overall project, just to explain a little bit about that, we have had that well system obviously online since 2004 when the property opened. Over the years, we've spent a tremendous amount of money just maintaining it on an annual basis, opening and closing the irrigation system, repairing heads, repairing main lines, repairing some of the irrigation lines. We built a well shed as well because some of the property, some of the part of the wells were underground, so we have some things now brought up to the surface, which is easier to manage and maintain, so that's helped over the years. Back in 2018, we started working with a well company to do annual redevelopments of the wells. What happens with wells over time, and please do not quote me, I am not a well expert, but I'll do the best I can. Over time, certain fines or materials and minerals start to clog up the wells. We have a huge iron problem over there, so that's been ongoing since we opened in 2004. But in addition to that, just in general, well operations, you start to have material that builds up, and part of the redevelopment that this company has done over the last few years is they go in and try to break that up, clean out the screens so that we can continue to get the water pressure and the water flow that we need. We've been very successful doing that for the last 4 or 5 years. In the last 2 years, we also installed variable frequency drives, which has helped us do a little bit better managing of the flow of the water and also the pressure that's needed. We have over 80 zones in that particular complex, which is pretty tremendous amount. So just an operation alone, to maintain that operation, if we only had one well online, we would only be able to water one zone at a time, which would take us approximately 20 hours a day with only 15 minutes per watering zone. So what we need to do is have 2 zones online so that we can operate half that time for about 10 hours a day so that our sports organizations can actually utilize the property. So there really is not an opportunity just to have one well available to us. So again, we have redeveloped the wells, and in troubleshooting this past year and past fall, the reason that we hadn't have any information prior to now is we constantly troubleshoot with the situation. We replaced some of the variable frequency drives. We had one that had to be reinstalled. So we did a lot of work in the interim of trying to determine whether this was really the necessary step. And unfortunately, that's where we've come to. And basically, the well company has said that our wells are choked off, so that because of the mineral deposits, and part of the other reasoning is our wells are not that deep. So they're between 35 feet. We're hoping to go a little bit further with that with the new wells. And the other part of that is our wells are also only 4 inches on diameter, so it doesn't leave a lot of opportunity for the well company to actually go in and redevelop them efficiently, and it just continues to build up. These would be 8-inch wells, so that it would be also a better opportunity for us to maintain them and redevelop them over time so that we can continue to have them operational. We need about 150 to 175 gallons per minute, and that the pressure is also about 80 psi. So between all of those things together, it's quite an extensive property, and it goes from one side, the wells are on one side, and it goes almost 16 acres across to get to the other side. So again, that pressure is very important to be able to maintain the irrigation system as we have it. So again, that's why we're here tonight. We appreciate your consideration, and if you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I'll take a first crack at it. So I think reading through it, the request is for a new well system, so 3 new wells to replace the 3 existing wells. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And there was maybe a concern about well number 3. So the existing well 3 has maybe some more trouble than the other 2 wells.
It did originally because it was
right?
much. Oops, sorry. Go ahead. Did he have something else?
Oh, I was just asking if that's correct.
Yeah, so the well 3 was actually considerably smaller to begin with, so it actually we lost that opportunity to use that well quite a few years ago, but at the time, the 2 other wells were working pretty efficiently, so we didn't have any need to worry about that at that particular time. So if we do that with the 3rd well, we would hope to have that be about the same size as the other 2 wells, so that we wouldn't have to have that same situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so if the 3 new wells are drilled, what would happen to the 3 existing ones?
So they abandoned them. So basically, they would take care of that, and so they abandoned the wells. I don't really know that much about wells until recently. I've always assumed that was a big, huge pit that you did with concrete around it. Apparently, that's not the case. They drill straight down, and so to abandon those wells is a lot easier than you think. So I think that's the process that it would take, and the assumption is that we would drill the wells somewhat within the same area that they're already in, so we're not disturbing any other area around it.
Right, good. The next one is about sort of the timeline of when the project needs to start, when it needs to finish, and when the money needs to be ready. In the request, it mentions project completion spring, summer 2024. Is that correct?
Correct. So the anticipation is if it does get voted in favor here to move forward at town meeting, and then at town meeting vote that it moves forward and is approved. We would like to start the project right after that, so we will have the opportunity to start the bidding process right away. We also have some funds in the Recreation Commission budgets already currently, so we would be able to utilize those funds for the first portion of the project. So we anticipate being able to start sometime in, mid-May with the beginning of the project, and then continue on as funds become available through the funding through town meeting.
All right, good. So our process won't hold things up.
Correct.
That's it for me for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? So the tennis court project then, if I'm not mistaken, we have money for both projects. Are you not able to move forward with both because you don't have the time to manage both projects, or?
We would have time to, no, we would find the time to manage both projects. I think we were respectfully thinking if there were funds that were not available, we would like to have one precedent over the other one. So if that's the case and both of them are able to move forward based off of fund availability, then we would definitely like to do that. We've already pushed these Reed tennis courts down the road several years in a row, so we would definitely like to consider both if that is an opportunity.
Is my math wrong? But I think we have money for both. Yeah.
Looks like it.
I don't think you need to drop one in favor of the other.
Great, thank you.
That would be my suggestion, but. Any questions or comments from the public regarding the recreation irrigation well? I think you need to state your name too when you go out for the record. Thanks.
My name is Ken Mullally. I'm the town treasurer. I'm also a former rec commissioner, former chair of the CPC. Just a little, I always say history is important, and I've been down those fields since before they planted grass. As your treasurer, I'm just going to say, this should be the mechanism to take care of this project. It doesn't make sense for someone to get up at town meeting to request these funds out of, an additional taxpayer dollar. So the CPC is here just for this type of thing. The state created this act to put these projects and others in the hands of the people so that we're not going after town meeting, after town meeting, after town meeting to ask for these funds. Sue has been here for 25 years. And I think she started when she was 12 here. But she works tirelessly. And you have a friend in Sue that I can vouch for personally to say that she does her homework. She may not be an expert in irrigation, but by the end of this whole project, she will be. She puts her heart and soul into everything. And my overall point in that is you have people that vet these projects before you do. And I don't think if Sue believed that this project didn't have merit, she wouldn't come forward to you with it. So I would respectfully request that you folks act positively on this, and best of luck. And I do appreciate all of your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the public?
May I make a statement? Oh, sure, of course.
Ann Gavigan, 21 Riverside Drive, lifelong Kingston resident, and I've played ball in this town since I was little, and I've coached in this town for too many years to consider, so I hope that you do see favorably in voting for this because it means so much to so many kids and families in this town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alexander, go ahead.
No, just a statement. Obviously, like, this is my first meeting. I'm probably the newest member of the committee, but I just think about what this committee is meant to represent and what youth sports in particular does for the community, particularly with the pride in when young children are playing and meeting together and everybody goes to watch their games, and having a beautiful, well irrigated field makes a lot of difference for something that kids are able to look forward to on a weekly or even an annual basis. So no, I appreciate that we were able to hear the proposal and maybe even possibly still offer the funding for the tennis court rehabilitation, because I feel like that also offers the same type of pride in the town. Just what I was thinking when I was sitting here listening to the proposal. So I appreciate the urgency, and I appreciate my fellow committee members allowing this to be heard.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Brian, online.
Yes, go ahead. We'll take the online.
Right, my name's Pat Rooney, 13 Riverside Drive. I am Recreation Commissioner in charge of the Opachinsky Sports Complex. That's one of my areas. And again, I just want to take this time to thank Sue and Keith Hickey for all the work that they've done on such short notice to get this out to the public and get this out to present it in front of you guys. Again, to reiterate what everybody else has been saying, that without the water getting onto these fields, we run the risk of extensive damage if for whatever reason we can't get the funding right away and we can't get the installation in, then you'd be looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars to rehabilitate these fields afterwards and to repair them and to bring them back. So I just want to reiterate too that there is a little bit of misinformation that seems to be going around. There is where the wells will be dug in the general vicinity, they will be tied into the existing underground structure. We're not going to be tearing apart the fields. We're not going to be ripping apart the main lines or anything like that. These are just going to get supplemented into the existing structure. I know there was some public comments about that, but I just want to wrap up by saying I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. For all volunteer boards, we have a ton of time that we put into these things, and I thank you for at least opening this up at this point. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comment.
Hi, my name is Nikki Cahill, 46 Summer Street in Kingston. I'm also the president of Silver Lake Youth Football. So I just wanted to let you know that I do support this wholeheartedly. We've been working on all of these things for the last year together as volunteer sports, as well as with Sue. And appreciate you guys hearing the application and hopefully moving forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions from the public? I would, for one, like to hear about the tennis courts. If that's one of my big concerns was actually displacing the tennis court proposal, more so than anything else. Sorry to make you work more.
That's all right. So the Reed Tennis Court rehabilitation, those are the two courts that are behind the Reed Community Building off of Landing Road. Again, I've been here for 25 years, and over that time, we continue to do ongoing maintenance as best we can with the budget that we have allowed to us, and some support through our revolving account, because some of the funds that come in can go back out to support some of the properties to a minimal experience with regard to if they are program related. So our summer program uses those courts extensively, as well as the general public for tennis activities as well. From some of the pictures I think that I've provided in there, you can see some of the damage that has happened over the years. There's quite a few cracks that are quite significant. We have over the years done some reinstallation of the top coat, so that we've done some painting and we've done some resurfacing. We put some new netting systems in. So again, just to make sure everybody is aware that we do our ongoing maintenance. We do our due diligence with that. But again, there comes a point in time that you can no longer continue to do that. The cracks just keep continuing to grow, and it's just not a safe environment, especially for tennis when you're running back and forth in those types of capacities. So we really are at a point where we need to make some adjustments in that. The other opportunity that this would provide is there's some other sports out there that are utilizing those tennis courts or different courts. So down at Grays Beach Park, we have an extensive pickleball program through the Recreation Department. A tremendous amount of members go down there. We made one court into 4 courts. They're very snug in there, tight playing, but they love it, and this would provide an opportunity for another use for that particular court, because we could go and line them with the pickleball lines. The other opportunity for that is to make it a multi-purpose court. We had talked about doing that down at Grays Beach Park, but if we are able to do this project, again, it's just a matter of lining, so it's not any extensive additional funding, but it does provide the opportunity for multi-use court down there, such as street hockey or some other things that would bring more opportunities for that particular property. It's a great location. It's very central to the town. Kids can bike there adults can drive there or walk there or bike there. So it provides, again, an opportunity just for the community to use it in a multitude of ways. And I just think it's really important for us to maintain what we have in our community. The infrastructure is very important. And again, there comes a time when after so many years of maintenance, just like on our own homes, you have to replace things. And that's really where we're at with this particular property.
Thank you for that, and thank you for agreeing to move forward with both projects. I know it's a lot of work. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Just a comment. I appreciate the consideration of both of these. It was a tough decision for the Recreation Committee It was a tough decision for the Recreation Committee to choose one project over another, knowing that we are supporting a town that uses both facilities extensively. So I really appreciate the committee listening to both of these proposals and considering them. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from committee members first?
I guess I might as well mention it now. Nathan again. I don't think the CPC is the best source of money for the tennis court project. I think I'd rather use that money on different projects. I'm not opposed to the renovation of the tennis court, but it seems like that's something that should get paid from somewhere else to me.
Do we know what the original source of funding for those tennis courts was?
I do not. They've been there since before my time. So, and I've been in the community for over 30 years. So they've been there a long time. Yeah.
They predate the CPC.
Correct. Can I just make one comment off of that? One of the things, and respectfully, Nathan, I appreciate your insight of that. One of the things, again, kind of what Ken Moali had said is that the Community Preservation Act was created and provides an opportunities for communities to fund some of these particular types of projects that weren't funded by communities in the past. You know, when you go to capital planning, for different funds and different things. Some of the priorities that take precedence and should take precedence are the things of public safety. So a lot of opportunity for community, recreation, historical, affordable housing, all of those things got pushed to the side. And so the Community Preservation Act was created just for part of this opportunity for the town to set aside a certain percentage of their tax revenue and also to have the state contribute to that to provide the opportunity so that doesn't continue to happen, so you don't have property that is in full disrepair. So I think that this really is the place to come to request these types of things. I would go to capital planning meetings previously, and again, a lot of things weren't able to be put on the table because there were other pressing things. So this is the perfect opportunity. I know in the past years a lot of comments have been made that recreation does come every year to have an application be considered, and I respectfully think that that's my job, that I should do that on behalf of the community, and I wouldn't be doing my job and my due diligence if I didn't come every single year to at least present something, because this is the opportunity for funding through for recreation. So I will continue to do that probably every single year as long as I am here, because I think that that is what we should be doing for our community.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a big smile on my face. I totally agree that that you're doing a great job putting in the request. I appreciate it myself. But just in terms of the money that's available to CPC, I would like to see more of it go towards open space projects rather than the recreation projects. And because the main reason for that is I feel there's a better return on it overall.
Thank you. I don't see any difference between the two applications from recreation. Just as we need to irrigate the fields to prevent further deterioration, we need to resurface the tennis courts to prevent further deterioration. They're both sources of community engagement, community building. They seem equally viable for CPC funding to me. We have someone online? Yeah. please, whoever it is, who is it? Do you have a name?
Good evening, John Michael Font, 16 May Avenue. I'm also the treasurer of Silver Lake Youth Football. I just want to encourage the committee to vote in favor of this. The Pottle Street Field Complex is extremely important for so many of our youth across the town. You just have to stop and think, it's not just one or two sports. It's baseball, softball, football, lacrosse, soccer. There are many sports that use that complex. And, that complex is beautiful, especially the baseball fields are amazing. So many towns come in here and comment about what a great job, we do with those fields. And I know I've seen Pat Rooney down there so many times cutting the grass super early, like working really, really hard to maintain that. And to me, it would be a slap in the face to him to let that grass just die because we don't have working wells. The other thing is that, there's a good amount of people on Zoom right now, and I'm sure at the meeting, but I would encourage the committee members to remember that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parents who right now probably don't even know that this is an issue, but you better believe that if they show up, late summer or whenever, and they see all the grass dead on all the fields, they're going to know that this was an issue, and they're going to want to know why it wasn't taken care of. So, and that goes to other towns too. There are other towns going to roll in here, and just like they come in now and they say how beautiful our fields look, they're going to come in and they're going to ask questions about what the heck happened here. Why is the grass all dead? What happened to your fields? So I would encourage the committee to support it. I would just say that any of you who know me, this is probably the only time in recorded history that I've actually supported government spending. So if you're not convinced thus far, I'll be convinced now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments regarding, we've moved on to the tennis course proposal though. So if there are comments related to the tennis court rehabilitation.
I thought you were still discussing everything.
That's quite all right. No, quite all right. Happy to hear as many voices as possible.
I'm online if I have an opportunity.
Go ahead, just state your name, please, before you speak. And address, do they know the address?
Sure, Missy Bateman, 15 Bailey Circle. I'm the Kingston Recreation Chair. I just wanted to thank the Kingston Community Preservation Committee, Sue, Pat Rooney, Suzanne, for all your time you spend putting these projects together. I think they're really important. We were absolutely in favor of both these projects, so to consider the tennis court project or reconsider that, obviously we would love for that to move forward. I think that rehabilitating that project and the wells, both, I think are important to the committee for us and hopefully for the rest of the town.
Thank you very much. Any other comments regarding the tennis court rehabilitation project? Okay.
Just real quick.
Yeah, just make sure you state your name.
Sean Kennedy, Vice President of Silver Lake Youth Football. I am not a resident in this town, but I am the Vice President for Silver Lake Youth Football. I came originally for the wells, but I just want to say Sue's done a great job. It's been 2 days of this nonstop. But for the tennis courts, like the guy said, he said we're not going to benefit from this. The community is all about the kids. So I don't even know how someone can say we're not going to benefit by, doing something with the tennis court, pickleball, street hockey. So I just want to say, I support both.
Thank you very much. Any further comments, questions, or concerns regarding the tennis court rehabilitation application? Okay, so seeing none, what I'll do now is just explain for the public what's going to happen next. I'm going to close discussion on close the public hearing section of discussion on the proposals we have before us. Then the committee has to do a little housework. We have to move some money around from older projects that are no longer need the money and put that money back into existing buckets to help fund projects that are before us. We then have to approve the budget once that's done, and then we will vote on whether or not the committee will recommend the proposals move forward. Once I close the public hearing part, we won't be taking any comments or questions or concerns from the public. You're welcome to stay if you want to see how the vote turns out. I don't imagine it'll take long to get through the housekeeping stuff that we need to get through. Hopefully we'll be done fairly quickly through all that. So even though I'm closing the public hearing part, that doesn't mean you have to leave. So before I close, does anyone from the public have anything else that they'd want to say on any of the projects that's been presented today? Excellent. Then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan Hedberg, aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public hearing section is now over. Committee will now move to review and vote on project closeouts. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. The first is the Hall Property Archaeology Survey. The project was funded in 2011, 13, and 14. In 22, the Historical Commission requested to keep the funds to spend in fiscal year 23. No action was taken then, and they are now requesting to keep the funds again from account 92691/78082 for the amount of $8,800.76. So I will make a motion to allow Historic to keep the funds to complete the booklet.
Second.
The floor is now open to discussion. This is a rather old project. Do we want to allow them to keep the money in their profile? Any discussion from the committee on this?
If I could, I know Historical has, the Historical Commission has discussed this, and the Historical Commission is in favor of it, requesting this extension for the use of those funds this year for that property.
Any other discussion from the committee? Okay, we have a vote in a second.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'm the chair of the Historical Commission. I guess I was asked to be here tonight, so I don't know what you want to hear anything from me or.
I don't think we need to. I think you were here to speak on the, I thought we were going to do the Bradford Homestead proposal. No. Okay.
No.
No, I don't think you have to worry about it.
So I can answer questions.
Okay. We do have a representative if we have any questions, specific questions from the committee that can be addressed.
And you have received my letter.
Mm-hmm.
Information with
We do.
back. We did receive an estimate. Falls within.
You're gonna have,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I don't know if I was officially speaking.
I guess I'll officially recognize.
Yeah, Craig Dalton, Chair of the Historical Commission, 11 Elm Street. We did receive an estimate or a quote from Public Archaeology Lab that has the, falls within our range of funding that project. So we're just waiting to hear word from the local tribe as to the appropriateness of the report. So it should be done this year if it's going to be done. If it's not, you have the money back next year.
Thank you very much. There's been a motion and a second. I think we're ready now for a roll call vote unless there's any further discussion. Okay. Brian Payne, I vote aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan Hedberg, aye.
Dot aye.
Motion passes. The second project closeout is a playground Friendship Grace Beach. Original request was in 2019 and 2022. Recreation requested to keep the funds, to spend it in 23. No action was taken then, and they are requesting to keep the funds again from account 92630/72587. I make a motion to allow recreation to keep the funds to complete the fencing.
I second.
Floor is open for discussion from committee members. Here none, I take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Dot aye.
Motion passes. The next closeout is the Gaga Pit? Okay, is that Gaga Pit? I'm old. This is funded in 2022, and the project is complete other than a sign. This was an Eagle Scout project, if you guys remember. Mr. McKinnon is requesting to keep $100 for the signage, which we do require for our CPC funds, but stated that the remaining $967.98 can be refunded related to account 92630/72612. I make a motion to return $967.98 to the Gaga Pit Project account 92630/72612 to return to the undesignated bucket.
Second.
Floor is open for questions, discussion from the committee. Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, I.
Not aye.
Motion passes. The last closeout vote is replacement LaSalle on the Backlund. It's funded in 2022. There's remaining $50. And Ms. Anderson stated this can be refunded to account 92691/72612. I move to close the project. The replacement LaSalle in the Backlund project account 92691/72612 to the account in the amount of $50 to be refunded to the CPC Historical Fund bucket. Second.
Second.
Floor is to open discussion from committee members. Hearing none.
In case if you didn't know, the Backlund is an antique boat.
Yes, I knew that. I just didn't know how to pronounce it. Believe it or not, I'm a historian. I'll take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, I.
Not aye.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is review of our budget. The budget was provided in the meeting packet information, so we need to review it and vote on it. You guys all have it in front of you?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make a motion to approve the operation budget of fiscal year 25 for the community preservation funds as presented. There's no amendments to this, right? No, okay. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Floor is open for discussion for committee members. Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, I.
Not aye.
Motion passes. Now I'll move to agenda item 4, the fun part. We'll vote on the projects that have been brought before us. We are voting on whether or not to recommend to town meeting for the funding of these projects. So we're not the final say on it. The town meeting is via the democratic process. So I will start by making a motion to recommend to town meeting the project of Kingston Affordable Housing Trust Funds in the sum of $50,000 for the from the available Community Preservation Act Affordable Housing Funds.
I'll second.
I'll second, Nathan.
Having a motion and a second, the floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, I.
Not aye.
Motion passes. We next will deal with the repairs to the buildings of the Major John Bradford home. Requested amount of $71,850. I make a motion to recommend the town meeting the project of repairs to the building on Major John Bradford home in the sum of $71,850, drawing $50,027.52 from historic and $21,822.48 from undesignated funds.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, the floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, I.
Not aye.
Motion passes. Next project is the advance to the Jones River Corridor Preservation, requesting $50,000. I move to recommend at town meeting the project of the advance to the Jones River Corridor Preservation in the sum of $50,000. $41,863 coming from the open space bucket, $8,137 coming from undesignated funds.
Dot second.
Having a motion and a second, the floor is open for discussion.
This is Nathan. I will abstain from the vote. I'm part of the co-sponsor organization, the Jones River Watershed Association.
Thank you. Hearing no further comments, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKay, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Dot aye.
Nathan abstain. Oh, sorry.
Motion passes.
Nathan abstain.
Yeah. Motion passes. Next project is Callista Farm Grassland, requesting $2,895. I move to recommend at town meeting the project of the Callista Farm Grassland project in the sum of $2,895 from available Community Preservation Act drawn from the undesignated funds.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, I'll call a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKay, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Dot aye.
Motion passes. Chimney Swift Tower Eagle Scout project, requesting $1,000. I move to recommend the town meeting the project of the Chimney Swift Tower Eagle Scout project in the sum of $1,000 from the available Community Preservation Act undesignated funds.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKay, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Dot aye.
Motion passes. We'll do the recreation irrigation well first because they discussed it first. I move to recommend at town meeting the project of the recreation irrigation well in the sum of $92,000 now? From the available Community Preservation Act undesignated funds.
A second.
Having a motion and a second, the floor is open for discussion.
I would just like to say I've got mixed feelings about this, only because I think we're opening up that can of worms for future community preservation committees to get last-minute requests. But I think, Sue, you missed your calling. You should have been a salesperson. Did a great job. So again, I just have mixed feelings about the vote. So.
I had mixed feelings originally as well, but when I was reading the application, when I was sitting here earlier, I also came here a bit early to try to prepare for this meeting. A lot of it is not only just about preserving the fields for our youth and for our for our citizens, but it's also just to prevent any future cost of trying to continue to maintain this and constantly having to put bandages on something where if we have the funding now and we can move forward with it, I think we should take advantage of that. But I am in agreement with you. Going forward, I think we should definitely hold true to our standards of the application process, but I think this was something that obviously it came late and something that I'm glad that we were able to hear.
I'd like to make a comment too. This is Dot. There are so many people involved in the use of those fields. I think that's the reason I will vote to follow through. Some of our projects are quite different and they aren't going to affect as many people or as much of the town, but this is just town-wide, exactly. That's why I consider it.
Thank you. I think for my part, just my 2 cents, once the committee voted to hear it, the fact that it was submitted late was a moot point to me. At this point, it stands equal to any other proposal, and I'll evaluate it based on the merits of the proposal and nothing else. I voted against originally purely as chair of the committee. If I was a member of the committee, I would have voted in favor, but as chair, I felt it necessary to protect the time and interest of the committee members. And having to deal with this application at the last minute, purely as a role as chair, and only as a role as chair, is why I voted against it. But at this point, in my mind, it's as if it was submitted on time.
As the CPC representative from Recreation, I thank you all for hearing this proposal. I know that Sue has done a tremendous job of trying to do everything she can to avoid this, having this project, and so thank you all for considering it.
Any other comments from the committee?
One other comment.
Yep, Nathan, go ahead.
Yep. Will there be a Conservation Commission filing for this project?
I don't recall seeing one, but that doesn't mean, I mean, I reviewed the application pretty quickly. I know there was an easement, but I don't know, I don't think there was a conservation. That, as it was mentioned earlier, is tapping into the existing well structure. From my understanding, it wasn't, they're not gonna be doing any further tear up or damage to any of the landscape there. But that's, did you want to address that?
Yes, that's correct. The intent is to do it right in the existing area, not in the exact existing wells, obviously, because they're abandoned, but right in the area right next to them. So that's where they'll be doing their test pits. If their test pits do not prove to be successful, then we would need to address that and obviously do a filing if it was somewhere in the parameters of the conservation boundaries.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Dot I.
Motion passes. The final one is the tennis court rehabilitation renovation request of $150,000. I move to recommend to town meeting the project of the tennis court rehabilitation renovation in the sum of $150,000 from the available Community Preservation Act undesignated funds.
A second.
Having a motion and a second of committee, the floor is open to committee comments or questions. Hearing none,
I would just like to bring up the total amounts of the recreation department requests are much larger than the requests from the other sort of target project types. And I just want to bring that to attention and maybe have that considered for the next year. Because I want the money to be shared equally among, the qualifying project types.
Thank you, Nathan. I generally agree, but I think maybe we need to do more as a committee to get the word out that these funds are available, but we still have, I think, considerably more money in our budget than what we're spending this year. I know last year that wasn't the case, but so it's not like we're denying a request from another source in order to fund these. I'm also more of an open space guy too, so I hear what you're saying, but you can't deny the value of the recreation. So.
One thing about that is I think there's a value in having some money available. If we deplete the balance of our accounts, we may not be able to take on some projects in the future that need more than we have.
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times, and I think that's why we rely so heavily on the plans we request from the departments every year when we draft the initial calls, and rely on recreation to tell us what recreation wants. And if recreation tells us that we have a 5-year plan, we want $3 million for it, we're not going to request anything until then. Okay, but I'm not a recreation person, so I rely on their expertise, and this is how they want to spend the money. I honor that request.
And respectfully, I don't think this is an either-or situation. I do want to just remind people that I think it was less than 2 or 3 years ago, we spent a great deal of money on the open space for Blackwater swamp preservation. So, I mean, I don't think this is an either-or. I think it's the projects are what they are, and they cost what they cost, and just wanted to put that out there.
I want to say again that recreation has a huge amount of territory to cover, and an enormous number of people involved who take advantage of it. And if you look at it in that view, I think it explains why they generally take so much money.
That was Dot, if you didn't know. He was here for conservation. So. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, no.
Dot, aye.
Motion passes. I think that's it. Is that it? Somewhere I have my instructions. I'm worthless without Trish's instructions. I'd make a motion to adjourn. Can I just do that? Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Brian Payne, aye.
Dave McKee, aye.
Suzanne Haggerty, aye.
Alexander Graham, aye.
Nathan, aye.
Dot, aye.
Thank you much. Meeting is 8:02. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.